The Concacaf W Championship is here. You can catch our full preview that we put out recently with Lori Lindsay. We also had Daniel Slayton on as a guest to talk about the final prep matches against Colombia. You can go and check those episodes out, listen to it as a podcast. You can watch it on YouTube. You can check out my content on CBSSports.com if you want a reintroduction to the 23 players on the United States women's national team who are going to be competing for a spot in the World Cup. Go check it out there. We've got all kinds of stuff on how the Concacaf W Championship works. It's not just qualifying for the World Cup. There's some other things at stake, and you can check out some NWSL players that I want you to keep an eye on in the Concacaf W Championship, players who are not affiliated with the United States women's national team. So head on over to CBSSports.com and check out all of the content that we've got rolling out for you. We're going to be taking a deeper dive here for you all as the first match, the opening group stage match for the United States women's national team is going to be kicking off on July 4th. That's Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And guess what? You can catch all of the entirety of the Concacaf W Championship on Paramount Plus. You can watch the highlights on Attacking Third YouTube. You can watch match replays on Paramount Plus if you want. I am so excited to finally be able to sit down and talk about a preview for the first match of Concacaf W Championship. Lisa, we're here. We made it to qualifiers.
We made it. World Cup qualifiers. It's here. It feels like we were just covering the Olympics, which we were, to be honest, less than a year ago. But I am very excited about this. It's happening. It's here. We've done so much build up to this. The U.S. have completed their friendlies against Colombia, where we got to see a taste of the 23 that are going to Monterrey, Mexico, or frankly are already in Monterrey, Mexico. And hear head coach Vlatko Andonovski speak not only about the competition and what is to come in CONCACAF and what he's looking for from his team, but speak specifically about individual players and what he's expecting from them, who we can, as fans and media, expect to see on the pitch, getting consistent minutes, what he's liked and what he hasn't liked, what he wants to see improve upon. And the two friendlies against Colombia, they were pretty telling about what this team is and where they are right now. And when I say they were pretty telling about it, it means that I have some questions, because they weren't strong in what they in certain methods of playing or certain methods of breaking down a low block. And that's what I am very intrigued to watch unfold throughout the Concacaf W Championship. But it all starts on Monday, July 4th, a heck of a way to close out your Independence Day with this game, 7 o'clock Eastern. It's happening, and you can watch all of these on Paramount Plus and CBS. We're going to be doing live coverage for you here at Attacking Third. We'll be going live right after this match ends, along with Lori Lindsay, to recap it and talk about it. So join us on youtube.com/Attacking Third. We'll be here to talk about it. But it's here. US versus Haiti, Monday.
I also can't believe it's already July. Quite frankly, I'm also just like, my goodness, we just flew through June. Like, there's that other part of it too. I'm like, oh my goodness, like we flew through June, and quite frankly, with this tournament, we're going to fly through July. Before we know it, we're going to blink and it's going to be over before we're already talking about it, even just its arrival and being here. But I'm into that. I'm very excited for us to be doing our live U.S. Women's National Team post-game coverage on Attacking Third, and listen, if you celebrate July 4th, come check us out after the fireworks, like see what's going on, see what we got to say about this game. But it's going to be United States going up against Haiti. We've got Haiti entering this match off of their qualifier, their road to this moment. We saw them play during February and during April of the Concacaf W qualification process, and they absolutely dominated their group, Lisa.
They completely did. Haiti plowed through the qualifiers, heading into the final game against Cuba that Haiti played. They already had 38 goals, and they end up with a 44 goal differential throughout the qualifiers, 0 goals against. Incredibly impressive to see from Haiti. And of these 44 goals, 13 players scored these goals. But another thing to look at across this Haiti national team is the players that they have and their ages and what they've already been able to do, because I think that's something that's super important. We talked so much about from the U.S. side, and the perspective is this is going to be a very different experience for them going to Monterrey, Mexico. The conditions, the training facilities, the competition, the fans that's happening. And that's why it was so crucial for Vlatko Andonovski to bring veterans like Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan and Kelly O'Hara to provide that veteran leadership and ability off the pitch as much as on the pitch, like a player like O'Hara and Sauerbrunn. So when you look at this Haiti team, the average age of all the players is 21.25. And that's excuse me?
It's a young squad.
It's a very young squad. And that is including Rose Lord Borgea, who is 29 years old and the oldest player on the roster by 4 years. The next one is Bachaba Luis, who also are the top 2 goal scorers throughout the Haiti qualifiers, the Concacaf qualifiers for Haiti. So the average age is 21. Incredibly impressive. There are so many 18-year-olds. There are 10 players on this squad that are age 20 or younger. So this is a young squad that can run, that can compete, that can go in transition, that can sit back and defend. We saw that throughout the qualifiers, having 0 goals against, but then also spring forward and attack. Now how well they do that against the United States and getting split between the lines, that's the only thing that I am looking at for Haiti, because when they do stretch and they go in attack, they're mostly attacking with just 3 front runners, maybe 1 midfielder coming in behind. So it's just 4 players in the front, and there's a big gap in the midfield. And if the United States can occupy that gap as Haiti gets stretched out, when they look to go in the attack and their young athletic players are running all around because they have so much energy and they're in a World Cup qualifier, that this is a big game for them, right? As it is a big game for the U.S. But so those are the holes that I want the U.S. to find in between the lines where Haiti is stretched out and pop into those holes. And that's how the United States is going to be able to pick apart a team like Haiti. But Haiti's my dark horse throughout this competition.
I know you picked them in the previous episode when we did the preview. I love hearing you chat a little bit about it. I'm really excited for honestly for audiences to maybe get reintroduced. We had across Paramount Plus the qualification process for this moment, so there's some familiarity with Haiti already for folks who have maybe watched those games that took place in February and in April. But besides this team sort of not only just being a young group, they're a young group that's been together for quite some time. They have played together. There is familiarity there. We can see it in their results. We saw it in their results during the qualification process to this moment, putting up some really, really heavy score lines within their group. But I'm also just equally impressed with their ability and their intelligence to just sort of shift through different stylistic things and formations. They are not a team that is afraid, I think, to change things up or make that adjustment when they need to. If they have to go from plan A to their plan B, they'll do it. And oftentimes they might even find the breakthrough and steal the momentum. I mean, I love that this team had a couple of prep games of their own ahead of this tournament. And I love that they had them against Costa Rica. This is another CONCACAF team that they're going to, potentially see down the road, depending on how the group stage shakes out. So the fact that they had these preparation games against Costa Rica, and we're talking about a 2-1 scoreline, a 4-2 scoreline. Haiti is a team with a lot of good ability, and I love that they're your dark horse, because looking at this group A, I think a lot of folks are looking at it and saying like, oh, this is a tough road. This is some group of death energy right here. And if you're saying that, it's because of the strength of Haiti. So I'm very excited to see what this team can do against the United States. Let's maybe talk a little bit about what we're going to be looking for on the United States women's national team side of things. We just got a couple of games, final prep games against Colombia for these for this team before they head into this qualifier. And I think you said it best already, Lisa. There was another common thread that we saw within these couple of games around this national team that has kind of been following them for a little while. And as I was covering the game and having to do a recap or analysis on this game, that's something that I still was left with as we closed out that second game against Colombia. And it took forever because there was a lightning delay. So there was like a 90-minute game went to like a 130 minutes. And so it was a lot, quite frankly. But in this second match in particular, I think we were hopeful to see some improvement in terms of that scoreline. I think when we were making our predictions with Danielle, I think at one point said, "Hey, I'm going to say 4 goals." Lindsay said 4 goals. I was like, I'll just say 5. Like, no, that did not happen.
That did not happen.
The breakthrough goal for this team happened because Sofia Huerta forced the issue, quite frankly. Service was headed away by Manuela Venegas. It was an own goal in this game. And I thought I liked that. I liked that this moment came early in the game for this U.S. women's national team. It came just, after the 20th minute. And I said, okay, great.
Which is much earlier than it had in the first match against Colombia, 55th minute or so. At halftime, Correct. It was 0-0 between these two.
So I was like, these are the things we wanted to see, right? These little things improvement. And you think like once you get that first one, it's going to open things up, but it just didn't happen that way. So they go into halftime, leading 1-0. If you're Colombia, that's promising for you. And then we saw in the second half, there were a couple moments where Colombia snatched a little bit of that momentum away. So yeah, if you're looking at the numbers, no, like seeing the numbers compared to the offensive stats, with the United States compared to Colombia, we're talking a 2-0 scoreline, and you're talking, 18 shots to 6 shots, 2 on target, compared to 5 for the United States. But we definitely saw those moments where they tried to test the back line and Alyssa Nair a little bit. And I think that was something that they were embracing. This team was going to embrace that. We heard Vlatko Andonovski say, hey, we want to go ahead and see what this team is going to present us. We might see these challenges during the Concacaf W Championship. We're satisfied with the team's ability to go out there and pick up the win against what was presented to them. But even though you're satisfied with that, you have to say maybe that is still a little bit of a concern, especially as you're looking at this first game going up against a team like Haiti that looks like they're going to be bringing it to their competition instead of trying to sit down in these low blocks that the United States is anticipating facing. So that's my biggest thing right now with this team. If we just remove what happened in 2021, because this is actually a narrative that's been following this team since that Tokyo game, since that bronze medal finish in the Olympics. There was this sort of narrative like, okay, so it's taking them a little bit long to sort of unlock some things from the opposition, but let's just remove that. Even if we're just looking at this 6-7 game stretch for the United States, they're heading into the qualifiers undefeated. And you got to feel good about that.
You have to feel good about that. And
they're winners in 6 games, and each of those 6 games have been by some type of multi-goal scoreline. But this little thing is still sort of chasing them. Is it going to take them an hour to unlock what's in front of them?
Exactly. I think that's a really important question that we have to ask. And you mentioned the opening goal most recently in the friendly was an own goal for Colombia. That was the 5th own goal that the United States have forced in 2022, which is the most in U.S. women's national team history. So they've got something going for them there, but I want the United States to be able to come in with a game plan and be able to execute that. It's also important to note that between these 2 Colombian matches, between the first starting lineup and the second starting lineup, we saw 9 changes for Vlatko Andonovski's side. And those 9 changes saw a player like Carson Pickett get a start. Huge for her. It is tremendous. I could talk about Carson Pickett forever. However, she's not going to Monterrey, Mexico. There was also players that got starts and got minutes that Vlatko Andonovski alluded to, that he has 9 of his 11 starters set. And the last 2 that he were evaluating were the goalkeeper position, most likely between Casey Murphy and Alyssa Nair. Casey Murphy getting the start in the first match and Alyssa Nair getting the start in the 90 minutes in the second match. And then the number 9 striker, whether it was between Ashley Hatch or Alex Morgan. Hatch got the start in the first game. Alex Morgan got the start in the second game. And he said that those were mainly the 2 roles that he was evaluating. So when you look at the starting 11 from the first match to the second match, personnel wise, sure, you can look at that. But when you look at the rhythm of how these 2 different teams played, the unlocking of it was harder in the first game for the United States, and they didn't do it as well. They didn't utilize the width of the field, which they did much better in the second game when they had Sofia Huerta and Carson Pickett in their outside back roles, really pushing high and occupying that space, which pulled Lindsay Horan and Christy Mewis, who are the defensive midfielder 6, back much, much farther, giving them less of an attacking presence and much more of a defensive playmaking presence because the outside backs were pushed so high. So when we look at the heading into these Concacaf W Championships and playing against Haiti, we know essentially what we're going to see. I imagine we'll see Andy Sullivan get the start in that 6 role with rotation between Lindsay Horan and Christy Mewis playing back there. And honestly, I liked Christy Mewis in that defensive midfield role. I think if she knows her role and she knows the understanding is not to score goals, but to find that connecting pass, to switch the point of attack, to control the tempo of the game, to dictate the play and have the forwards be checking back for the ball, which pulls that block out of shape. And if Mewis knows that, Haran knows that, they will be fine in that role. And we saw that against Colombia because those were the areas of the field that I was really looking at. Now, how long is it going to take for them to unlock another team? I think that's something they're working on right now in film on the training pitch, because you can learn so much from watching film and watching the forwards movements and where the opponents that are defending them track to, and then how that opens up different space, and having the freedom and the flexibility and the creativity as attacking players to read that movement, find the open spaces, and then occupy those spaces, while also the players with the ball understanding that that's where you're going to go as well. That I basically just explained a creative offense. And that's really what we didn't see too much of in either of these games.
I'm eager to see if this team could sort of build off these 2 matches specifically going into this CONCACAF tournament. You know, throwing out She Believes Cup out the window, you know, a game against New Zealand where they forced 3 own goals, you know, throwing out the matches against Uzbekistan that were like completely lopsided scores. These 2 matches specifically, I think I'm looking for them to build upon. I liked seeing the front 3 at times playing a little bit more centrally, a little bit more narrow, trying, you know, and allowing some space to open up for the wide players to attack, which these are things that I wanted to see. So, you know, seeing Christy Mewis, you know, a little bit more in that 6 row, that was something that I wanted to see in this match. And I liked what we saw. So I'm hopeful that the transition from coming out of these 2 matches into CONCACAF W Championship will be the 2 games that maybe aid this team a little bit more than some of their prior matches in 2022 and the build up to this and into this moment. I think even with some of these areas that we're pointing out, right? This is part of sort of the lore of this team, quite frankly. The United States women's national team are the favorites in this match. They are entering this tournament as the reigning champions of this tournament. They won in 2014. They won in 2018. They are the reigning World Cup champions, you know, lifting the cup in 2019. And they are the number 1 ranked team in the world. So that part of like the criticisms and things like that and the analysis around these particular areas of the attack, I think that's the baggage that comes with sort of being the number 1 team in the world. There's an expanded format this year. If you're a semifinalist, guess what? You're booking your ticket to the World Cup.
Yeah.
But I think if you're the United States women's national team and you don't come out here and you don't win this tournament, that's a disappointment for this, this program as it has been built, as this sort of machine that goes out there and racks up wins and produces results and wins titles and wins cups and wins medals, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't go out there, I don't know if it's going to be enough for this team to just say, okay, we qualified and that's enough. I just don't think they're built that way. They've shown us multiple times they're just built different. So we will see how that turns out. And I think we're gonna get a lot more answers, I think, in this first match against Haiti than maybe we might have anticipated in some of these prior 7 matches that they've played to start out 2022.
I completely agree. And as you mentioned, if you make it to the semifinals, you're in. So this first round and these first 2 rounds are incredibly important for every single team in this. And it all starts on Monday.
Yeah,
USA versus Haiti.
Lisa, give me a player who you want to have a big game against Haiti.
For the United States,
yep.
I mean, Mallory Pugh, I want her to be able to take her creativity to this Haiti side and unlock their back line, unlock their box, get good shots on goal, get crosses into the box, really connect with Emily Fox, who's in behind her on the left side. I want Mallory Pugh to have fun and like play her best game ever. We've seen her slowly building up. I don't want to see it plateau at this point. I want to see her continue to climb and hit that peak. What about you?
I'm with you for all the same reasons, but for Sophia Smith, I really liked what we've seen out of her, both for club playing with the Portland Thorns and what we've been seeing from her recently with the United States women's national team. And I want to see that progression continue throughout this tournament. And we're going to be here for you all throughout the entire duration of the Concacaf W Championship. You can watch every single game across Paramount Plus. Lori, Lisa, and I will be covering the games. We're going to be doing live recaps for all the United States women's national team matches. So make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube so that you never miss out on a show for when we react to the results